Hey everybody, Laura Kingan, part 2 on one video. Let me just briefly talk about with aggression, what we're trying to do is either prevent, manage, or if the management becomes so out of control, you need to seek help. And to the point where short-term crisis hospital, like I worked at St. Luke's Behavioral Health Center, that was a long time ago. But that was like hospitalization. But a lot of clients who are really aggressive may need to go into residential treatment. Or if it's breaking the law and there's legal issues, prison, right? So that can impact someone's quality of life and their functioning. So it's important to address our aggressive tendencies. Okay, so I guess one other point that I really wanted to make in that social arena is the modeling. And why, in part, I've emphasized what's going on in the world. Because us adults, whether we realize it or not, or to our best abilities, kids can pick up on what's going on in the world, and they can pick up on our own stress. And if the TV is on, kids are picking up on that. Call of Duty, COD. I mean, I remember working in someone's home, and their 3-year-old granddaughter was watching their uncle play Call of Duty. I mean, to me, it's a very militarized kind of a game. It's one thing to go and play that, but we need to be aware of the modeling that's going on and what's going on subliminally, and how do we interact socially with one another. Kids pick up on that modeling. So we talk about relationships, relationship building, and what's going on between two adults. Kids can pick that up. So we have a responsibility in what we're teaching too. And it's really confusing because there's a lot going on in our world today where leaders are having trouble getting along. The Democrats and Republicans are having trouble getting along. Men and women have trouble getting along. Our left brain, right brain can have trouble getting along. And yet, on the other hand, this is the way we're made. How does our right brain, left brain come together? How do men and women come together and marry and have children and create new life? So there can be good, positive things. The Democrats and Republicans, somehow, how do we... You hear my husband sighing. It's like, I know I'm getting a little edgy here, but it's important when we talk about aggressiveness. So the last section is the physical. And bringing like full circle, the topic today is aggression. Can a sensory approach help? I believe yes, absolutely. Certainly in my work with autism, so much of the behavior is sensory based. It's physiological. Whatever the causes of autism are, we know that there are neurotoxins in our environment. How much are they impacting our brains and our ability to function? We talk about the senses. What is sensory? What's related to our senses? Things that we see, hear, smell, taste, and touch. With our sense of, and then there's also our sense of movement that really is like a sixth sense, and then people talk about interoception as a seventh sense of what's being able to tune into our bodies. These are important considerations. But as I mentioned before about the symptoms of aggression, a lot of those symptoms are very physical in nature. The punching and the hitting and the hair pulling. There's a sensory component with those aggressive actions so much of the time. I'm not talking so much about yelling, but the hitting and the punching and the kicking and the pulling, they're physical in nature, and they give us sensory input. Regardless of the cause or whatever, it's physical in nature. In my work at St. Luke's Behavioral Health Center, now this is back in the mid-80s, 1984, I worked in a sensory integration clinic with kids with serious psychiatric issues. And it was amazing how many of those children had sensory processing issues. Now, we were administering the Southern California Sensory Integration Test, the SCSIT. This is before the SIPT, the Sensory Integration Praxis Test. And so we were doing standardized measurement tests looking at sensory integration. Now, the field is kind of fragmented in some ways, and it's like, is sensory a thing or not? Well, I actually started over 40 years ago working in this field. I was introduced, some of you, my childhood friends, Marilyn Butterfield. She was an occupational therapist. I worked at Head Start with her in 1979, and she exposed me to the SCSIT test. So we've had these tests. We know that there's some issues here. There's serious implications with this. I'm overemphasizing this point. It's huge. And I want it to kind of be my segue into the activity. When we talk about touch, there's the light touch. We're going to break it into two parts. The light touch and then deep pressure. For most people, deep pressure, like a Swedish massage, is very calming. It sends neural impulses. It is sensory input going into the brain, telling the brain to do something. And then we have some kind of response, output response. And that's what we mean by sensory integration. There's an input, a throughput, and an output. I really try to stay away from that term now, and I just like to use more sensory motor. See, I kind of stumble because I try to stay away from sensory integration because it's become a trademark term in my mind. And it's also very specific and very focused. But I believe that we can use tactile input, sensory input to help address those needs that can contribute to aggressive tendencies. Not for everybody, but in my experience, it has helped a lot of people. I alluded to interoception. So one of the things with this is tuning in and paying attention to your breathing, to sweating, to your energy level, the color of your face. These are different cues that I would use as a therapist on how my client is handling things. And we can work with that. And I just want to mention interoception, that I think it's important because part of what we're trying to do is build self-awareness. And another key component or performance component that we are working on is body awareness. And I know I'm already been talking for a good half an hour, and I could talk more and more about this. Because body awareness then contributes to other skills in our developmental continuum. So it's not just aggressiveness that we're addressing. It's in addressing aggressiveness, we can address other qualities about our functioning and our quality of life. And I think it's like the cue to go ahead and just start getting active here. So what I'd like to do is do an activity with you all. I'm going to build a little bit on previous activities. The last demo I did last week, I had the hammock swing. And so I tend to like to go in themes. If you notice with my videos and my therapy approaches. So last week we had the hammock swing up. Safety issues. You need to make sure that if you do something like this, you've got a secure hook in your ceiling. I'm not going to show you how I have mine, and I'm going to be delicate, because there are safety issues. But I want to be able to give you all some ideas of maybe some things that you can do at home. You may not have some of this equipment, but hopefully it will spark some ideas for you to help you. Just please be safe, be responsible. Make sure that the area you work in is large enough, and things that are breakable are out of the way. Make it safe. I want to, in this activity, emphasize the deep pressure, proprioceptive quality of our sense of touch. that in the aggressive acts, it's like our body is wanting the deep pressure. So let's give our body the deep pressure, but in a healthier way. And the idea is to do this regularly over time. A one-time deal may help a little bit, but the idea is to do this over time. Do activities like this, because what we're trying to do is help wake up the brain and help the brain process sensory information, make new neural connections so that the brain can be more activated, especially if there's been some kind of damage or trauma to the brain. There's a term called plasticity, even redundancy for that matter, that the body is an amazing thing. If there's an injury somewhere, there's other parts of the body that try to compensate for that. And so that's really where we're kind of trying to come from. And if I may say, I have ended up having a lot of tough clients in my caseload, a lot of foster and adoptive kids with paternal or maternal drug use, a lot of behavioral issues, like I said, with St. Luke's. This last resort therapist, but very early on in my career, I was exposed to the sensory approach. I worked with Lorna Jean King. She was my first boss, my first official boss as an occupational therapist. So kind of a shout out to that. That in my 40 or so years, I have found that this approach has been very helpful to my clients. And as a last resort therapist, I have been able to have some success. And so it's my intention to share what I've learned over my career with you all, and to pass it along. And so that I hope that this helps you all out. So we'll see how this goes as far as timeline goes. I'm going to do this swing activity. I'm going to pull the cushions off the couch. We'll do some physical things, and then we'll do a little quiet time. So we're kind of building, and we're going to peak during the activity, and then we're going to calm back down. So much of the autism, the hyperactivity, and emotional dysregulation is people get heightened, and then they have the difficulty in calming themselves back down. It's part of that circle, right? Where we're calm, we start out calm, and we kind of peak, we settle down, find resolution, and come back. Peter Levine, talking about post-traumatic stress disorder, talks about that too, where we want to complete the cycle, right? Because if you escalate and then you go off and running, you can find yourself in prison. And there could be a lot of serious issues, right? Serious consequences. Talking about setting limits. So we want to calm back down. We'll do a quiet time. Now, my husband is a drummer. He's a musician. And I have asked him to join me, Kevin M.F. Kingen, of the Vanderveer Breaks. Shout out to Spencer Vanderveer and Eric Michael Carafino. Actually, there's the banner. Music is so important in sound. And so when we work and do activity, I do try to do it an integrative kind of an activity. And we'll see how this all works for you all. You can come back and listen to this over and over again and use this activity, again, as a spark to help you in dare I say, your own aggressive tendencies or your own strategies to help you in working with your emotions, with your sense of touch. And in this time, a lot of people are living alone. I'm very fortunate. I'm married now. Just celebrated our 10-year anniversary. But those needs for touch are also part of this. May not be aggressive, but it still fits into this category. So apparently I like to talk. Let me move on here. Before I do that, I want to talk a little bit about brushing. So we're going to brush, and then we'll do the swing activity. I am going to resituate these iPads so that you can all see better. So if you can all just bear with me. Put you all down. Hang in there, everybody. There we go. So I try to keep my demos to 45 minutes. Sometimes I'm better than other times. And I think with today, with this topic, we'll see how well I do. I've talked about brushing before, and I have a demo on brushing. I have a video on brushing. But because I feel like this is such an important part of the topic of aggression, I'm going to go ahead and include this in this activity. So now I'm doing this as I'm talking. Obviously, depending on my client and being here on a video, I want to be appropriate. I want to be appropriate no matter what. So use good judgment with this. What I would recommend is having like a basket of different textures. And before you do a physical activity, we want to do some brushing, okay? Now, I'm not using a ton of pressure, but I'm just brushing up. And see, I'm talking about like the appropriateness of how much surface area of your body or of your client, child, guardian, or ward. Use judgment with that. Most kids will handle this. Some that are very sensitive, this is too much for them and they're not going to like it. I wouldn't push it, but I would try to incorporate other tactile activities and sensations in my sessions with them so that they can maybe get to this point where they can do this kind of brushing. What I've also learned is this also helps to stimulate the lymph. So we talk about toxins in our body, detoxing or whatever. What does that mean? Well, we want to have a good lymph system. That's what helps to get the toxins out of our body, right? And to move the toxins. So that's part of this brushing is moving that lymph. And then we always kind of want to just jiggle a little bit in our armpits because that's where it goes into the bloodstream and helps. And you can even do like your neck, you do the back, but with the back, see, I would start like distal, away from the body, and come towards the body. Start distal and come towards the body. We want the lymph to come up our body. If we go this way, it's pushing the toxins into our body, so we want to go this way. I may do a demo about ADLs, activities of daily living, but let me just briefly say, some of you talk about kids who have problems with cutting their nails. I had one client who actually did it himself. He really had a lot of trouble, but if he did it himself, he was better. So I may be a really, dare I say, large energy person to come and try to do this to somebody. And I certainly have, and it's been accepting, but sometimes that's too much. So I may give the child a brush and let them play. Let them experiment without me having to be so like, do it this way or do it that way. Because then it comes from within them better. So that's brushing. And so that's kind of like a little waking up. I would not do this late at night if I want someone to go to bed. This kind of a thing is going to be more excitatory. It's a little more of that lighter touch in a way, as opposed to the deeper pressure. This is a preparatory type of stimulation, okay? So, thusly, the individual you're working with may be talking more, making more sounds. If you have somebody who's nonverbal, this might help a bit, right? So we don't want to turn around and say, no, don't say anything, right? But we want to acknowledge that there's a building of the energy level, okay? So let's do something more physically active. Let me adjust first. That is not going to work, is it? I'm going to move you guys back up here. Now, how is that going to work? So, when we talk about aggression, I want to get, our whole body has a sense of touch, right? So, with the brush, we covered a lot of area. We want to continue on that theme. We want to use this ball. We're going to be a little silly with this. And I'm going to hit it with my different parts of my body. We're going to have some fun with this. I've asked my husband, Kevin, to join in. So for this rest of this part, I'll talk some, but it's more active. If there's something like this you can do in your own home, like maybe even a cushion, try that. I think that's probably all I want to say. So let's cue the music, and I'm just going to hit it, not just with my hands, but with my whole body. Okay? Yep. There we go. And let's have some fun with this. So instead of being like that dark aggression, let's give our bodies what we want. We talked about body awareness. We talked about body parts, right? A lot of kids with autism, they have problems with their bodies, knowing what their bodies are. You just say, where's your hands? They don't know, right? So hit it with your hands. Let's work on body awareness activities. Hit it with your hand. Hit it with your butt. Hit it with your head. Be safe. Hit it with your belly. Keep going. Let's have some fun with this. Some people have right, left-sided issues. Talked about that, alluded to that earlier. If you hit it with one side of your body, hit it with the other side of your body as well. Some people have some neglect, so this is a good way to address that. So we're going to build. It seems kind of quiet today. If you're safe, some ideas. It's also going to work on some stamina and endurance. Now, even addressing things like eye-hand coordination, bilateral motor coordination, fists, make sound, channel it, and let that energy out, right? So my husband is actually modulating my activity level with the sound. I'm having the tendency to want to increase my arousal level, but he knows that there's a safety issue with this, so he's keeping it toned down. I appreciate that, right? We need some help sometimes. So we'll let that keep going. I'm going to pull the cushions off of my couch. Let's see. Well, I was really excited about that activity. Didn't quite translate as well as I would have liked. But you should get the idea that this is to hit and in a way to really try to cover a lot of the body, to give our sense of touch, the tactile receptors, not just for our hands, which is so typical of what it interacts with the environment, but our whole body. Because I think with a lot of the aggressive acts, it's that sensation that is sorely feeling neglected. So, let's see. Let's go ahead and take this down. Whoops. And then let's do some quiet time. Bear with me. So I try to do some different types of activities to give you all different suggestions. I've done something like this similarly before, but this can definitely stand to bear repeating. And we'll come back with you guys. So, deep pressure. Trying to use some things that you all have at home. Our cushions. Yep. So we'll go ahead and cue the music. We'll have my husband go ahead and start with some sound. So as I get settled and you all get settled, see how well I can do this. So some of you, especially those of you that know about the sensory, this might be a little bit of a review. This is very heavy. I don't know how well I can do this on my own. Can't quite do it. You might find that kids, yeah, that'll have to suffice. You might find kids, oh yeah, like to burrow themselves in the cushions of the couch. What they're, in my opinion, trying to do is give themselves a sensory input that they're really sorely needing. So I encourage you to find, whether you do the couch cushions or something else. That's why OTs really love beanbag chairs, because they cover a lot of the body. So a lot of the body is feeling that sense, that is getting that input through the tactile touch receptors, and it's calming the body down. So I tried to, with the ball activity, kind of spike a little bit and then come back down. So this is definitely live and organic, right? We'll just spend a couple of minutes. The music going to give you a chance at home to do this alongside, okay? And then coupled with your breath, suggest taking 3 slow deep breaths in and out. And just let yourself rest. Deep breath in and out. Deep breath in and out. Make sure your body's comfortable. One more deep breath in and out. Just rest. ahead and slowly take deep breath in and out. As we slowly start to settle down and wake ourselves back up. Wiggle your fingers and your toes. Slowly peel off. Remembering to make sure to clean up, leave the room the way you found it. Hope this has been helpful to you all. Aggression is an important issue. I hope that there's some strategies here to help